So in this video, I wanted to share with you some technologies that I'd recently started using, or services that I'd recently acquired over the last couple of years that in the past I hadn't really used, and I'm going to discuss the kind of difference that these things have made in my life. So to start, back when I was in junior high school, we had these little sheet magnifiers, and you can already see how absolutely terrible this thing looks. Unless you look at it straight on, you can't get a good view. And even then, if you have fluorescent lights high above you
7 p.m.
that cause a lot of glare, you can imagine how crazy the user experience is when it comes to reading regular print sheets. It was either that or put my nose up to the sheet, bend over and put my nose up to the sheet. The other thing that I used was enlarged books, and you can see that you've got nice large print, nice big picture, but take a look at the binding here. And the reason for this is because in order to fit the same amount of text in a larger print that you would see in a regular book, you physically have to make the book bigger. And unfortunately, that adds a lot of weight, it adds a lot of bulk, and it's just plain uncomfortable. But this is what I did all through high school. I used these kinds of textbooks. They were printed in black and white, but the way I could describe them is that they were more like a black and beige or gray and beige. It was just really odd. And when it came to varying shades of, say, light blue and medium blue, well, in the book, those were 100% gray, and you couldn't tell one state apart from another, as an example. So it was rough. But the reason I used these technologies is because at the time, I wasn't fully aware of what was out there. I wasn't fully aware of what could help me. And when I was in school, nobody had really addressed those opportunities with my parents. Either that or they had, and they were so focused on the whole business of if I'm getting by, why do I need something that's super expensive kind of thing. Again, this was back when I was in the public school system, so all through school, I basically told myself that, now I had a friend and his vision was a lot worse than mine, and he was using a lot of the software that I'm using now. I always felt that because my vision was significantly better than his, that I didn't need it. Boy, was I wrong. Enter the portable video magnifier, and I can tell you that compared to that sheet magnifier, this thing is a godsend. Clear, crisp fonts, color alterations, font size, spacing. Some units have the ability to save your images. These days, I have that software built into my phone. There are apps that are available for Android and iOS that can accomplish the exact same task that the standalone units do. And it's interesting because the standalone units actually cost the exact same pricing, so anywhere between $500 and $700 or $800 that an unlocked cell phone does. So, but it was literally night and day between using this and using that. Another technology that I am so happy to have been able to try out and use is ZoomText Mac. I've got several videos on ZoomText Mac, so I'm not really going to go into everything that it can do in this video. I'm just going to give you some highlights. I'm going to start by zooming in on the screen. We can see here that the screen, everything is sort of grainy, and I can see well enough to get around, but it's really cumbersome to utilize for long stretches if you need any major reading done, especially at least compared to ZoomText, because if we switch, I need to disable the magnifier. Hang on. So we switch to zoom text, and you can see that things are a lot smoother. If I click here,
File, new tab, new private window, open file, close tab, open file, new private window, new tab, file.
So this plus special reading software that extracts the text from web pages and brings it to me in a large print format, and reads it aloud to me. When it comes to reading large bodies of literature, again, this is one of those deals where I don't know how I could have managed without it. And long ago, I would have taken a look at the price, and my parents would have taken a look at the price, again, back in school, public school, and we would have wondered, why would you need that when you're getting by just fine as it is? And again, I don't think that at the time any of us realized the true value of this software. Yes, it's expensive, but I'm serious. Once you try it, you can never go back. The same is true in accessing literature, both textbooks and leisure books. Bookshare.org has really been wonderful. I used to get it through an agreement that the government had with Bookshare. Basically, they gave them a donation which said that as long as you're a college student and can prove it, you're good to go. Well, I'd since graduated. I'm back at the moment getting my PhD, but at the time, back when I graduated a couple years ago, I went ahead and put down the money myself. It was $50 a year because I love the service so much. There is literally at least a dozen, if not more, apps that can read Bookshare books, as well as talking media players that can do the same. And in my instance, I like the fact that I can actually download Bookshare books to my phone, to my iPad, to my Chewy tablet by way of Android. I haven't really gotten it to work on the Windows side. And be able to read these books in large print and follow along with the speech. It's literally a night and day experience. In fact, what I do often is, like, if I go into Barnes & Noble, there was a book by Elon Musk, and it was a recently published, and I went ahead and looked on Bookshare, and there it was, and I downloaded it. And that is so much better than having to search around for a specific copy, or with the audio. To me, not being able to follow along with the large print, it feels incomplete. I'm not saying that the narration isn't bad, and I do enjoy the narration, especially if the book is based on a TV show or a movie, Harry Potter or any of the Star Trek books, for example. But especially if you're reading a book and you're trying to learn about new materials for the first time, it is so much better to be able to follow along with large print, and on a word that you don't know, be able to tap on it, bring up the dictionary, learn about that word. Bookshare books allow this to happen. And again, this is literally night and day versus, what I did back in school with having to put my nose to the book, or having to worry about taking along very heavy large print books, or the volume of the proper book. Those books were divided up into volumes, and they and you had to make sure you had not just the right page number, but the right volume. And oftentimes that didn't necessarily get me in a lot of trouble, but I was zinged for it, and it wasn't my fault. Basically, I just should. Well, I didn't know about the particular page number for the day, and I guess I'm sorry. I said that it wasn't my fault, and I guess in a way it was, because I should have kept a better eye on things. In terms of being able to read large regular print rather than having to use the magnifying sheet, there's software like KNFB Reader. Now, I'd been using Prismo, which does a similar thing. What it does is, if we follow over here from right to left, you take a picture here of this print page, and it converts the page. You can go through some parameters to adjust, and you have it in big, large print, highlighted, voice reading. It is wonderful. Prisma only allows you to read it, but have it read back to you. You can't have the independent text size and color scheme parameters and spacing that you can with the KNFB reader. And it can also import PDF documents, so I can download a book or an article, say from Web Campus, onto my Android tablet and import it into KNFB Reader and have it read aloud to me with nice big font. It's just fantastic. And this technology actually didn't exist back when I was in school, or at least it did, but nowhere near to the degree of reliability that it is now. But again, you compare this to having to put your nose up to a book and causing possible back problems in the future. Which would you rather have, you know? Another thing that I've started doing a lot lately is utilizing my red and white cane when I go out. Now, I don't utilize it necessarily 100% of the time. I only utilize it when I'm either indoors in an unfamiliar setting, say if it's dark, especially if it's dark, or I'll use it outside with my sunglasses, because my sunglasses, they cut down on my glare sensitivity, which I'm very glare sensitive, but they also alter the color of things, so my cane helps to tell me if there are obstacles in front of me. So this is... Honestly, again, this is one of those things where I kept telling myself I didn't need it, that I was getting along well without it. But once you start using it, and I mean really using it, it's just one of those things. Another service that I use on a regular basis is the ADA Paratransit services. Now, for the longest time, I was able to get transported by my family. But the problem is you have to coordinate your schedule with theirs. And especially back when I was in high school and especially junior high, my parents were a bit anxious about some of the places that my friends were going, and they didn't allow me to join them. This is par for the course, I think, for any student, especially with a disability, who's in the public K through 12 system, which is understandable. Your parents want to protect you. They want to keep you safe. But there comes a time when you do need to have independence in terms of getting around, and Paratransit has enabled me to do that. Services like Access a Ride in New Jersey, or DART in Texas, are just really, really wonderful. They're door-to-door transit services for people with disabilities, and it frees up my family's time, and it allows me to be more independent. And again, this is one of those things where you don't know how you lived without it, kind of thing. Now, obviously, it's not a perfect system, and recently there have been upsurges of things like Lyft and Uber and other ride-sharing services that could potentially take it over if they could get a nice program where you don't necessarily have to pay through the nose for it like you would with a taxi cab. One of the nice things about Paratransit is only for my area, it's only a couple of bucks to and from, which if you're going somewhere regularly, not only do they know how to take care of you as somebody with a disability, but it's also very affordable. So if Uber or Lyft had a program similar to Paratransit where I'll bet you they're hopefully getting disabilities training, but if they could get the pricing down to where it's significantly less than a cab, then I'd be more interested. At the moment, there's really not too much of a difference, at least not where I am. Most recently, I got my very first Handicap placard, and this is another one of those things where I honestly felt I was getting along well without it. But recently, it has become very easy for me to get one of these, and I applied for one actually yesterday at the time of this video, and I got one, and it has allowed me to park. Now, obviously, I can't drive, but my relatives drive, So it has enabled us to park as long as I'm with them. We can park in the handicap spaces, and you're probably thinking, well, what's so great about that? Well, let's think about this for a moment. I mentioned a moment ago that I have glare sensitivity. My peripheral vision is also off. I cannot see out of my right eye at all, and I have mild spastic cerebral palsy in my legs, which means that if I sit for a long time, I get very stiff. Here's a typical parking lot. Let's say for a moment that I'm in the center space, okay? And on either side of me, you know those jacked up pickup trucks, right? The really wide ones, the 3500s with the monster tires. You know what I'm talking about. Or the really big 15-passenger vans. If I have one of those to my right and they're parked closer to my side of the line, and especially if it's at night, see, the problem is I can only tell where we're parking, and even then I can't tell where we are positioned in the space, not 100%. And I often am worried that, number one, I'm not going to be able to get out because I can't open my door far enough to where I can freely rotate my legs. I've had issues where we park and I open the door and I can get it open to where I can feasibly get out, but just barely. Like, I have to really, not necessarily wiggle and jiggle so much, but I have to take it one step at a time and make sure that that I'm able to effectively get out without scraping my ankle on something. It's either that or open the door wide enough to where you end up creating a very big dent in the guy next to you, and that could cause problems. Obviously, I don't need to get into that. Whereas with the special parking, these spaces, they're obviously intended for people in wheelchairs, which I fully understand. But it's also great for me because, given how stiff my legs can be sometimes, I can more freely open the door as wide as I need to, which in some vehicles is very, very wide. I have to open it pretty much all the way. And as a result, being able to do this without worrying about bumping into somebody or causing issues for myself in terms of being able to get out efficiently, it's just wonderful. And also being able to park. Now, a lot of people may think, oh, you're just being convenient in terms of walking, closer to the front door. But the truth of the matter is, because of my CP, my walking is kind of irregular. It's not necessarily erratic, but it is irregular to the point where if I'm in an unfamiliar territory and I'm not necessarily sure where I'm going, I may end up missing something and tripping. Thankfully, that hasn't happened, but there's always the possibility. So being able to park closer to the front door of an establishment just negates or at least reduces that possibility. So it's really helped in terms of also not having to worry about getting out into traffic, because sometimes people are crazy. I'm just going to be honest. People are crazy on today's roads, and in some parking lots where you're not entirely sure where your vehicle is, or you're not entirely sure if there's somebody coming, it can be dangerous to cross. So you can see where this can be of great benefit, and I'm just so glad that I have it, along with all of the other services and technologies that I've been using. And I feel like they've made my life more productive, more independent. It's just been an incredible experience overall, and I have to wonder why I haven't done any of this sooner. Has anybody else been in this boat? I'm curious. Thank you for watching. Comments are welcome, and have a nice day.